Before there were spray cans, before DEET, before any of it, people still kept insects out of their homes. For thousands of years, across civilizations that had nothing in common except this one instinct, people planted specific herbs around their doors, hung bundles in their kitchens, tucked leaves into their bedding, burned dried stems in their rooms. Certain plants produce aromatic compounds so potent that insects actively avoid them. And those same plants, you can grow every single one of them in an apartment, in pots, on a windowsill. Today we're covering 10 of them, their real history, exactly how to grow them at home, how people actually use them, what the science says. Number 4 on this list has one of the most fascinating histories of any herb in the ancient world, and one of the most serious warnings. And number 6 is the one that will genuinely stop you mid-video. You know this plant, you just had no idea it did this. If you want a windowsill that actually does something, subscribe right now and share this video. Let's get into it.
Number 1. Mugwort, the ancient smoke herb. Let's start with the one that looks like it belongs in a forgotten apothecary. Mugwort, Artemisia vulgaris. Silvery green on top, pale silver underneath. Deeply lobed leaves. A strong, bitter, almost medicinal smell when you crush them between your fingers. This is a plant that announces itself. The history is extraordinary. Mugwort appears in the folk traditions of nearly every continent independently. Anglo-Saxon herbalists called it the mother of all herbs. It was the first plant listed in the Lacnunga, a 10th century English medical manuscript. In Japan, dried mugwort, called mogusa, has been burned in traditional medicine practice for over 1,000 years. Across medieval Europe, it was hung over doorways, tucked into shoes for long journeys, burned in rooms. The reason it showed up everywhere is the smell. That bitter, camphor-adjacent aroma comes from volatile compounds including camphor, cineol, and dujone. Camphor in particular has well-documented insect-repelling properties. Mugwort is honestly almost impossible to kill. It's considered invasive in parts of North America for good reason. It spreads aggressively in the ground. In an apartment, that aggression works in your favor. Grow it in a medium to large pot, at least 8 inches deep. Standard potting mix. Full sun to partial shade. It tolerates a north-facing window better than most herbs. Trim it regularly to keep it from getting leggy, and those trimmings are exactly what you'll use. The classic application was smoke. Dried mugwort bundles were burned indoors. The smoke deterred flying insects. You can dry fresh cuttings upside down for 1 to 2 weeks, then burn the dried bundles slowly, like incense. The second method was strewing. Fresh leaves scattered across floors and thresholds. As people walked across them, the leaves released oils that acted as a contact and airborne repellent. A safety note, mugwort contains thujone, which in very large amounts can be problematic. Avoid consuming it in medicinal quantities if pregnant. As a windowsill plant and dried bundle, it's one of the most visually striking and historically rich herbs you can grow.
Number 2, wormwood, the silver ghost plant. If mugwort was the common herb of old homes, wormwood was the powerful one, the one people treated with more respect. Same family as mugwort, you can see it immediately. But where mugwort is silvery green, wormwood is an almost unearthly silver gray. Soft, feathery, ghost-like foliage. It looks like something from a different era, from a garden that no longer exists. Wormwood's most famous modern appearance is an absinthe, the spirit that became notorious in 19th century Europe, allegedly causing hallucinations. The science has since clarified that absinthe at normal concentrations doesn't deliver enough thujone to cause those effects. The hallucinations were more likely due to extremely high alcohol content combined with mythology, but the plant's reputation for power was ancient long before absinthe. In ancient Egypt, wormwood infusions were used medicinally and to protect stored grain. In medieval Europe, bundles were hung in pantries and wardrobes specifically to deter moths and weevils. The Greek physician Dioscorides recommended it. It appears in 16th century English herbals as a treatment for worms, which is where the name comes from. It was also strewn on floors and burned as fumigation. The active compounds, absinthin, thujone, camphor, and other sesquiterpene lactones are extremely bitter and aromatic. Moths, flies, and various beetles actively avoid them. Wormwood is drought tolerant, loves full sun, and actively prefers poor, well-draining soil. Do not give it rich potting mix. It gets leggy and weak. Mix standard potting soil with sand or perlite 50-50. A south or west-facing window is ideal. Water sparingly. This is a Mediterranean plant that evolved in dry, rocky conditions. It's beautiful enough to be a purely ornamental houseplant. The silver foliage catches light differently than almost any other plant. Here's how it was used. Dried bundles in wardrobes and storage areas, specifically targeting moths. Fresh leaves tucked between stored clothing. Small bundles burned as fumigation smoke in rooms. Important safety note. Wormwood contains significantly more thujon than mugwort. It should never be consumed as a tea or tincture without medical guidance. Sustained internal use can be toxic. For household repellent use, hanging dried bundles, placing leaves in storage, it is used externally and historically has a strong safety record. Do not ingest it and keep it away from children and pets. That silver ghost on your windowsill is beautiful and functional. Just treat it with the respect the old herbalists did.
Now we move from the mysterious to the famous. Citronella grass. You know this one, or at least you know its name. It's on every citronella candle, every outdoor torch, every natural mosquito product. But most people have never actually seen the plant. They've never grown it, and they don't know how it actually works, or how it doesn't. Citronella grass is native to South and Southeast Asia. It has been used in Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and throughout tropical Asia for centuries. Planted around homes, used in traditional medicine, and eventually becoming one of the first commercially extracted essential oils in the 19th century. Citronella oil contains geraniol and citronolol, compounds that have genuine, documented mosquito-repelling activity. However, and this is important, citronella candles perform significantly less well than direct topical application of citronella oil. A 2017 study found that citronella candles reduced mosquito landings by around 35%, while the plant itself standing nearby did essentially nothing. Topically applied citronella oil has been shown to repel mosquitoes for 30 minutes to 2 hours, depending on concentration and formulation. Not as long as DEET, but real. The plant is most valuable as a renewable source of the oil, not as a passive protective barrier just by sitting there. Citronella grass is tropical. It wants full sun, warmth, and consistent moisture. In an apartment, put it in your sunniest window, south-facing, or supplement with a grow light. Use large pots. This grass forms clumps and can reach 4 to 6 feet tall outdoors. It won't survive frost, so this is strictly an indoor or warm climate plant. People used it by crushing a handful of fresh leaves and rubbing them on exposed skin before going outside. The oils absorb quickly. Or steep crushed leaves in a carrier oil, coconut or jojoba work well, for several weeks to create a simple citronella oil infusion. Strain and apply topically. For outdoor gatherings, surrounding seating areas with citronella grass in large pots and crushing some leaves periodically to release the oils is a reasonable approach, much better than relying on the passive aroma alone.
Number 4. Pennyroyal, the forgotten Roman herb. This one requires a serious conversation before we get to the history. Pennyroyal, Mentha pulegium, the smallest member of the mint family. Creeping, low-growing, with tiny leaves and a sharp, almost antiseptic mint scent that is genuinely startling. Far more intense than peppermint, almost medicinal. The safety warning first, because it's non-negotiable. Pennyroyal contains pulegon, a compound that is toxic in significant quantities. Pennyroyal essential oil is extremely concentrated and has caused serious liver damage and deaths when consumed. This is documented in medical literature. Even topically, the essential oil should be diluted carefully. The dried herb and the living plant, used externally as described historically, carry a much lower risk, but pennyroyal should never be consumed as a tea or supplement. The essential oil should never be ingested, and it must be completely avoided during pregnancy. This plant has a place on this list. It has a remarkable history and genuine repellent properties, but it belongs on your windowsill, not in your teacup. With that understood, the history is extraordinary. Ancient Romans scattered pennyroyal leaves across floors to deter fleas. In medieval England, it was one of the primary strewing herbs. Herbs literally spread across the floors of homes and public spaces, partly for fragrance, partly to deter insects. The name pennyroyal comes from the Latin pulegium, derived from pulex, meaning flea. It was specifically explicitly associated with flea control across multiple ancient cultures. Pulegon, the compound responsible for that sharp aroma, is a proven insect repellent. It's been studied specifically against mosquitoes, fleas, ticks, and chiggers with demonstrated activity.
Pennyroyal is easy. It behaves like mint. Give it a pot with moist, well-draining soil, partial shade to full sun. Water regularly. It spreads readily and will trail beautifully over the edge of a pot. A hanging planter works wonderfully. Trim it regularly. The fresh-cut leaves release the most intense aroma. For modern use, place pots near doorways and windows. Rub fresh leaves on clothing, not skin, before outdoor activities. Dry the leaves and place small sachets in wardrobes and drawers. Do not use the essential oil directly on skin with significant dilution. Do not consume. Do not use around children or pets. A fascinating, ancient, genuinely functional plant with real edges. Treat it accordingly.
Number 5, lavender, the purple calm herb. From the most dangerous plant on this list to perhaps the gentlest, lavender. If any plant on this list needs no introduction, it's this one. And yet, most people don't know why it actually works or how deep the history goes. The name lavender comes from the Latin lavare, to wash. Romans added it to bathwater. Ancient Egyptians used it in mummification and perfumery. In the Middle Ages, lavender was planted outside kitchen doors and windows specifically to keep flies out of food preparation areas. During the Great Plague, lavender was one of the plants used in vinegar preparations believed to protect against contagion. The science there is questionable, but the anti-insect use is legitimate. Lavender's essential oil contains linalool and linaloyl acetate as its primary compounds. Linalool has demonstrated repellent activity against mosquitoes, fleas, flies, and moths. A study found that linalool significantly reduced mosquito landing rates on treated surfaces. Against moths specifically, the textile-destroying Tiniola bacilliella, lavender is one of the most effective natural deterrents known, which explains why it replaced toxic mothballs in many households. Lavender wants what it evolved in: full sun, dry air, excellent drainage, and slightly alkaline soil. In an apartment, this means your sunniest window, south-facing ideally, with very well-draining soil. Add perlite or coarse sand to standard potting mix. Water deeply but infrequently. Let the soil dry completely between waterings. The number one way to kill lavender is overwatering. It blooms best when slightly root-bound, so don't rush to upsize the pot. Cut back by about 1/3 after flowering to keep it compact and productive. The historical methods are still the best ones. For moths and textile protection, cut flower stems just before peak bloom. This is when oil content is highest. Bundle 5 to 10 stems together and hang upside down to dry for 2 weeks. Place dried bundles in cloth sachets and wardrobes and drawers. Replace every season as the scent fades. For flies, fresh pots near windows and kitchen areas create a passive deterrent. The effect is real but modest. Think reduction, not elimination. And it smells extraordinary. This is a plant that makes your home better in every direction.
Number 6, catnip, the secret insect herb. This is the one. This is the plant that stops the video. Most people know one fact about catnip. Cats lose their minds around it. What almost nobody knows is that the same compound responsible for that reaction, nepentolactone, has been the subject of serious scientific research for its insect-repelling properties. Research shows that nepentolactone is approximately 10 times more effective than DEET at repelling cockroaches in laboratory conditions. Now, the honest limitation. Lab concentrations and real-world conditions are different things. Catnip is not as consistent as DEET for personal mosquito protection, and you shouldn't rely on it as your only defense in high-exposure situations. But as a household deterrent, particularly for cockroaches and flies, the evidence is interesting. Catnip is native to Europe and Asia and has been cultivated since at least the 15th century. It appears in English herbals as a medicinal plant and was also noted for keeping vermin away from stored goods. Catnip is mint family, aggressive, forgiving, and very fast-growing. Give it a medium pot, decent potting mix, moderate sun, and consistent water. It will grow. Trim it regularly, dry and harvest before it flowers for the most potent cuttings. Important note if you have cats, they will find it. They will destroy the pot. Hang it or elevate it beyond reach, or grow it behind a closed door and bring cuttings out. Fresh or dried leaves placed in sachets near problem areas, particularly corners and under sinks where cockroaches are active, work as a contact repellent. Small sachets in dry goods storage are a traditional application. For mosquito deterrents, crush fresh leaves and apply to skin, though the effect duration is shorter than lavender or citronella. Catnip is also beautiful.
Soft gray-green mounds with small white and purple flowers. It grows with almost no effort. The plant your cat is obsessed with is also one of the most scientifically interesting insect deterrents on this list.
Number 7. Marigolds, the garden guardian flowers. Marigolds are where ancient intuition and modern gardening science meet perfectly. Tagetes species, French marigolds and African marigolds, despite their names, are both native to Mexico and Central America. They were cultivated by the Aztecs for medicinal, spiritual, and practical purposes long before European contact. Marigolds produce several compounds worth understanding. The roots of Tagetes species release alpha-terthionil into the soil, a compound that is toxic to nematodes, the microscopic soil parasites that destroy vegetable roots. This is why marigolds have been companion planted with vegetables for centuries. They protect the soil itself. The flowers and foliage contain pyrethrum-related compounds and a powerful scent profile, including limonene and ocimene. Whiteflies, aphids, and certain beetles find the smell repellent. Mosquitoes also show avoidance behavior around concentrated marigold volatiles. The effect radius of a pot of marigolds is modest. The soil protection from root-secreted compounds requires direct planting near vegetables. Marigolds are one of the easiest flowering plants on this list. Full sun, at minimum 6 hours, is non-negotiable. They are sun plants, south or west-facing window, or outdoors on a balcony. Standard potting mix, consistent water, but let the top of the soil dry between waterings. Deadheads spent flowers constantly. This is the key to continuous blooming. If you let old flowers go to seed, the plant slows production dramatically. Remove dead blooms every few days, and you will have continuous color for months. Pots near windows and doorways as positive deterrents. Planted near herbs and vegetables on a balcony to protect soil and deter whiteflies.
Number 8. Bay laurel, the Roman protection tree. We move now to something older and permanent. Bay laurel, the laurel of emperors, the wreath of Apollo, the herb in your pantry right now. Bay is everywhere, but almost nobody grows it. Almost nobody knows its insect history, and almost nobody uses it beyond dropping a dried leaf into a pot of soup. Bay laurel is native to the Mediterranean basin and has been cultivated for at least 3,000 years. In ancient Greece and Rome, it was simultaneously a symbol of victory and achievement, and a practical household herb. Roman kitchens stored bay leaves with dried grains and legumes specifically to deter weevils, the beetles that destroy stored food. Bay leaves contain 1,8 cineol, also called eucalyptol, and other monoterpenes. Cineol has demonstrated insecticidal and repellent activity against several stored product pests, including weevils, bean beetles, and certain moths. For pantry protection, placing dried bay leaves in containers of flour, rice, pasta, and dried beans, this is a traditional practice with a scientific basis. It works. It wants full sun, good drainage, and moderate water. Let the soil dry slightly between waterings. It is slower growing than most plants on this list, but extremely long-lived. Bay is one plant you buy once and keep for decades. It tolerates being shaped and pruned, which makes it excellent as an indoor topiary or standard, a single tall stem with a round head of foliage. Place 1 or 2 dried bay leaves in every container of stored grains, flour, rice, and pasta. Replace every 3 to 4 months as the volatile oils diminish. This is practical, proven, and has zero impact on flavor in the container. The aroma is too mild for that.
Number 9. Cedar, the ancient wood protector. Every other plant on this list you can grow. This one is different because cedar is a tree, and you're obviously not growing a full cedar in your apartment. But cedar belongs on this list because its story is one of the oldest and most complete insect protection narratives in human history, and because you can work with cedar in meaningful ways at home. Eastern red cedar and western red cedar both have been used for pest protection across North America for hundreds of years by indigenous peoples before European contact, and across the Mediterranean and Middle East using Lebanese cedar for far longer. The aromatic oils in cedar wood, particularly cedrine and cedrol, repel moths, silverfish, and various beetles. Before mothballs were invented in the 19th century, cedar was the solution for protecting stored clothing and textiles. Museum conservators still use cedar in collection storage today. The Egyptians used cedar oil, extracted from Cedar's labani, in the mummification process, partly for its antimicrobial and insect deterrent properties. This is one of the oldest documented uses of a plant-derived compound for preservation. An important caveat: cedar loses its effectiveness as the wood dries and the oils dissipate. A cedar chest that hasn't been sanded or refreshed in years has little protective power.
What you can do at home: cedar blocks or cedar rings placed in wardrobes and drawers, refreshed with cedar essential oil every few months, are a legitimate functional moth deterrent. Small cedar sachets in clothing storage boxes protect woolens effectively. Cedar essential oil in a diffuser creates a pleasant forest aroma and has mild insect deterrent effects in the room. This is at the gentler end of effectiveness, but real. For silverfish, which destroy paper, books, and fabric, cedar is one of the most effective traditional deterrents. Place cedar blocks on bookshelves and in document storage areas. The apartment version of cedar, you won't grow the tree, but a collection of cedar accessories in your storage areas, combined with other plants on this list, creates a genuinely layered pre-industrial pest management system for your home.
Number 10. Sweetgrass, the sacred smoke grass. We close with the most unusual plant on this list, the one that blurs the line between practical and ceremonial, between insect repellent and something much older. Sweetgrass, Hierocloe odorata, also known as holy grass, vanilla grass, or bison grass. Sweetgrass holds deep spiritual and cultural significance for many indigenous peoples of North America, including the Lakota, Anishinaabe, Blackfoot, and many other nations. It is one of the 4 sacred medicines in many traditions, alongside tobacco, cedar, and sage. Braided sweetgrass is burned ceremonially to carry prayers, to cleanse spaces, and to invite positive presence. We're focusing here on the botanical and historical insect repellent dimension, which exists independently of ceremonial practice and is genuine. Sweetgrass contains coumarin, the compound responsible for its distinctive sweet, vanilla-like, newly cut hay aroma. Coumarin has documented insect repellent and insecticidal properties. It's also used as a food flavoring in small amounts, though in large quantities it can be harmful to the liver. This is relevant only for consumption, not for using the plant as described here. The aroma released when sweetgrass is dried and its braids are burned or simply present in a room has demonstrated mosquito and fly deterrent properties in several studies. Sweetgrass is actually one of the more challenging plants on this list. It's a wetland grass native to cool northern climates. It prefers moist to wet soil, unlike almost everything else on this list. It can tolerate brief dryness but prefers consistent moisture. Cool temperatures. It struggles in warm apartments without a cool window. Full sun to partial shade. It spreads by rhizome and does well in wide, shallow pots. Start from flugs or rhizome divisions rather than seed. Sweetgrass is notoriously slow and unreliable from seed. Be patient. It establishes slowly, then spreads steadily. Here is how you can use it. Dried sweetgrass placed in woven or cloth sachets in wardrobes and storage areas acts as a moth and silverfish deterrent. The coumarin content is the active agent. The fragrance is extraordinary. If you've never smelled sweetgrass, imagine fresh hay crossed with vanilla and something green and clean. It's one of the most beautiful plant aromas that exists. As a living plant, sweetgrass in a pot in your home brings a remarkable fragrance when you brush past it. Pre-industrial people weren't confused or naive. They were observing carefully, across thousands of years, which plants changed the conditions in their homes. Linalool in lavender, nepentactone in catnip, pulegone in pennyroyal, cedrine in cedar, coumarin in sweetgrass, camphor in mugwort, toujon in wormwood, geraniol in citronella. Different names, the same principle: volatile aromatic compounds that insects avoid. The honest summary of effectiveness: for moths in stored clothing and textiles, lavender, cedar, and wormwood sachets are genuinely effective, well supported by evidence, and have been replacing mothballs in homes for good reason. For pantry pests, bay leaves in grain storage is documented and practical. For mosquitoes, citronella and catnip topically applied are real, though shorter acting than synthetic options. Think of them as your low-exposure, low-stakes choice, not your high-exposure protection. For general fly deterrents, marigolds, bay, and lavender near windows and doors create modest but real reductions. The important warnings: pennyroyal, never consume, never use the essential oil undiluted, never use during pregnancy. Treat it as the powerful plant it is. Wormwood, same essential oil warning. As a dried sachet herb, it has centuries of safe use. Do not consume. Mugwort, milder than both, but still avoided in pregnancy in significant amounts. The beginner stack. Start with these 3. Lavender, bay laurel, catnip. Within 6 weeks of starting those 3, you'll have sachets for your wardrobe, leaves in your pantry, a windowsill that smells extraordinary, and the beginning of understanding what human beings knew before there was a spray can for everything. If this shifted how you think about plants, what they actually do, hit the like button and subscribe for more of this. Tell me in the comments,
Which one surprised you the most or you never heard about? Thanks for being here.